we've been talking for a really long time, and we both have to get on the road. Bill has to get back home to Michigan. I need to head back down to Louisville. So we're going to have to wrap it up, but we're going to continue this in the future. We have a lot of questions from readers, questions for both of us to answer, a lot of questions for Bill that have come in for readers, and we're going to cover those. But I'd like to close with two questions that relate to your years in the Iron Game publishing business. And the first question I was going to say it's an easy one, but actually it might be difficult because there might be so many possible responses. So the question is, over the years, what has been the most enjoyable and most rewarding aspect of publishing books and courses dealing with strength training and muscle building and bodybuilding and physical culture and Iron Game history?
What is the most rewarding experience?
Mm-hmm. What's the best part of the job?
That's easy. When an individual contacts me years later, maybe months later, at all ages, doesn't make any difference. Could be a teenager, could be a man in his 70s, and says to me, "Thank you for what you do." And in many cases they'll say, "You know, if it wasn't for you, I would have stopped training in frustration." That to me is worth everything. Because face it, I never intended, and it was never my intention, and I never was wealthy from this. That was never the point. For many years, it was just a matter of collecting, and if I broke even, boy, that was a big deal, you know. That is the most important thing. The rewarding part that I've helped somebody with their training. Because there's many people out there that are very frustrated. They don't know which way to go. There's so much conflicting information, especially with the internet age. Now, you go on the internet and you Google, for example, weightlifting or strength and bulk or how to get bigger, how to get stronger. And you get a million hits. How long does it take you to wade through all that information? You don't have that long to live. It's very simple. You've got to break it down. The best way to find out what works for you is start to get your feet wet. Get out there and try a routine. If the routine works, stay on that train. It's going in the right direction. You're getting stronger. Whatever else goals you have, you want to lose some body fat, build endurance, what have you, continue on. When the routine does not fulfill its purpose, don't have a love affair with it and say, well, now I've got to stay on this because, you know, a month ago I was getting good gains. Change something. A human being adapts. You know, we've been around thousands of years. It's because we adapt. You adapt to exercise. Adaptation is part of the whole process. As soon as you start to adapt to that exercise, it's time to change it because you're not going to get stronger. You got to shake something up. You got to take a day off. You got to take 2 days off. People constantly beat up on me about. They don't beat up on me, but they'll ask me questions. Overtraining, you know. Gee, you know, and they'll send me a routine. Well, this is what I'm doing, you know. I said, are you kidding? Are you an endurance runner? You know, are you, you're training for the Boston Marathon here. No, that's not how it works. To make a long story short, compare a sprinter with a long distance runner and then compare their routines. They don't practice. They don't exercise. None of their methods are the same. They're two different, like cats and dogs. And if you were to take each of them they're running track for, say, college or Olympics or whatever. You take that sprinter and give him a long distance routine, practice routine, and you give that long distance runner a sprinter's routine, they would die. They can't adapt that quickly. They couldn't do it. A sprinter's not a long distance runner. He is a flash in the pan. His event is over in seconds. The long distance runner, he has to pace himself. He's got the long haul. And their bodies reflect it. That is the thing. But to help other people, that was the purpose in the beginning. I love to collect, but I love to help people. And when the correspondence was really heavy before the internet took over, I have piles and piles and piles of correspondence from people from all over the world. It's definitely something that has a very positive effect on me.
Well, and it's something where you have had a very positive effect on tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And that is a wonderful legacy. Let me ask the second question. This will be the last question, and we'll follow up with other questions at another place and another time. But this may be a hard one for you because, as I said, you're very charitable. If you could change one part of the Iron Gang, what would it be and why?
When you say Iron Game, that is an umbrella that encapsulates Olympic lifting, bodybuilding, down the street, in the garage, cellar dweller, weightlifting. I would have to say the one thing that I would want to change if I were king.
This is the if I were king, if I were the master of the universe.
If I had the control over this, I would say end the say one thing and do another. In other words, they will put out in front of you with the big print that do this routine with free weights or machines, eat this food, and take these supplements, and you will become this strong or have a body like this. Okay? The fine print is that incidentally, pharmaceuticals enter into the equation. That's probably the most damning thing that has ever happened to the Iron Gang. Because nobody likes to be made a fool of. And so the general public looks at this and sits back and says, whom are you trying to kid? We know that you're on this stuff. We know that you're using this stuff. Why do you lie about it? That's the problem. And yes, there's the argument that yes, steroids are terrible and they hurt you. And all sorts of problems from kidney failure to heart failure to cancer to you name it, okay? And then there's the ones that say, no, if taken as directed, remember what I said about a little bit's good, more's got to be better? That enters into it. If it's taken as directed, they're perfectly safe. My contention with my body, sorry, I'm not going to err on the bad side. I'm going to err on the safe side and not use them. I don't think they're necessary for all intents and purposes because there are hundreds of people that I've seen over the years that were either using this or even admitted using these chemicals, and then years later they shrink down to looking like everybody else with the strength of just about anyone else. So I say it should be the big three things for the purpose. And that is health first. And don't jeopardize it. Strength second. Now, physique, bodybuilding, if that happens, fine. If not, stop and think. Maybe, just maybe, you do not have the genetics for that. Maybe you do not have the natural long clavicles or shoulders. Maybe you don't have the very narrow hip structure to have that V taper. Paul Anderson didn't have it. Paul Anderson wouldn't even consider becoming a bodybuilder. Steve Reeves wouldn't even consider being an Olympic weightlifter or a power lifter. Steve Reeves knew that he had the genetics going in, the good looks, the opportunities, and he learned the methods. And that's what he became. Paul Anderson, through the help of such famous men as Bob Peoples, learned to be a champion Olympic weightlifter and world record holder. That's what you have to consider. What is the hand that you're dealt? You have strong suits, you have weak suits. Concentrate on your strong suits and try to work on your weak suits. That to me is the key to success. But the pharmaceuticals, who knows what's in those? Some of the stuff is black market, some of the stuff is imported from other countries. No, that's not the key to success.
So the one thing that you would change, if you were king, would be steroid usage in the Iron Gang.
Not only steroids, from what I understand, you know, if you say steroids, you have to be very particular because there is, well, we're not using steroids, we're using growth hormones, or we're using amphetamines, or I'm talking about
PEDs.
all the PEDs. You're endangering your health. How many times have you read they come out with some sort of wonder drug, it's going to cure this malady, whatever it is, okay? And then 2 years later, it's pulled off the market because it causes this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem. You don't know the long-term effects of these chemicals. You simply don't. Natural is the way to go. Natural foods. Brooks Kubik is a big proponent of natural, homegrown, local farmer-produced fruits and vegetables. His book, Knife, Fork, and Muscle, expounds on it. It was an eye-opener for me. And that book will tell you about what it takes to be successful as far as what you ingest. The chemicals are not the way to go. Now, I'm not saying that pharmaceuticals are necessarily a bad thing and should be wiped off the face of the earth. If you have a problem, a serious condition, they're a lifesaver, okay? But the kid, or even the mature adult that goes into bodybuilding, weightlifting, or any physical sport, football, for example, any of it, to be better without having any bad physical, malady of any kind, any serious condition, health problems. If he doesn't have any of that, he has no business taking any performance-enhancing drugs. None. Zero.
Well, that was.
I did take a stand there.
I was going to say
that was on the verge of no more Mr. Nice Guy.
That was a no more Mr. Nice Guy answer, and it's interesting if we were doing the interview differently and you were asking me those questions. My answer to both of those questions, the last two questions, would have been in my words, but the thought would have been the same. That far and away the most rewarding aspect of being in the iron game information business is helping people. And it's getting feedback from people that you've helped. Sometimes people who write to you 20 or 30 years later. It's just wonderful. And, we both had that experience, and it's a wonderful experience. And if you ask me the question, Brooks, if you were king, what would you change in the iron game? And, my answer would be, I would eliminate drug use. And a related caveat is, by eliminating drug use, I would eliminate artificial standards in strength and muscular development. That means people would have realistic standards that they could achieve or come darn close to achieving. And that would probably make them more likely to use realistic, what I call real-world training programs, because they're looking at achieving realistic standards as opposed to pie-in-the-sky, impossible, chemically enhanced standards. And the other thing is, people would avoid what I call the steroid mentality. The steroid mentality being the mentality, you can't do it without drugs. The world nowadays, 15-year-old kid thinks, I can't build strength and muscles unless I use steroids.
That's so very true.
That they think that.
Yes, that they think that.
Yeah.
And it's so widespread.
Yeah, and it's absolutely the worst mindset out there, because it leads you to one of two things. You either take the drugs, and they either work or they don't. But even if they work, you've lost, because you've never learned what it is like to succeed by yourself naturally, step by step, from victory to victory, success to success. Or you use the drugs and they don't work, and you've got all kinds of bad side effects, perhaps. That's not good. Or what happens is you don't use the drugs, but you don't gain very much in the way of strength and muscle because you think you need the drugs. And you assume if you can't use drugs, or you don't use drugs, you assume you can't get very good results. And guess what happens? Self-fulfilling prophecy, you don't get very good results. So, that's my view, and we'll have to address these issues at greater length, when we pick up. But it's interesting that our two answers to those questions are so similar. So anyhow, we have filmed this with a very low budget production value operation. We are actually in the private dining room of the hotel that we stayed at for the seminar. They didn't need it, and so we were very kindly allowed to use it to film this. You can probably note, we've got a coffee pot here, and if you look at the background, you're looking at the background of the hotel dining room. We will film the next segment in another location. We've already been talking about where it might be, and it might include some very interesting background and very interesting things that we can share as part of the program, so to speak. So be looking for the next installment. It looks like we're going to have an actual series of these going. I've kind of got that sense. And we hope very much that you've enjoyed it. If you have, if you've learned something, and above all, if it has helped you in any way, shoot me an email, shoot Bill an email. Be sure to sign up for our email lists for our daily emails with training tips and motivational stories and anecdotes and iron game history. Sign up for Bill's, sign up for mine. You'll enjoy both of them. And if you're not familiar with Bill Hinbern's website, Bill, why don't you give him the contact info?
Contact info is superstrengthtraining.com.
That's one word, no hyphen.
No hyphen, one word, superstrengthtraining.com.
And if you want my information, my website, it's Brooks Kubik, BROOKSKUBIK.com. And either way, at both sites, you will find a wealth of real-world, old-school training information and some of the most motivational material that's out there. So, thanks for listening. Appreciate it very much, and we'll be talking with you soon.
Have a great day.